if you got this money, this $48,000 of tax-free money at 20 years old, you'd be a millionaire at 35. Hey everyone, Kevin here. What would you do if you got $2,000 per month for the next year? That's $24,000 in tax-free money. Heck, what would you do if you and your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife combined that money with you? That'd be $48,000 in a year for a couple, tax-free. Which the reason I say tax-free is because ordinarily, if let's say I pay 25% in taxes, I have to go work a job and make $64,000, pay my taxes, and I'm left with $48K. Well, this potential stimulus plan would just straight up give me $48K tax-free doing nothing. Well, that's exactly the plan that's in Congress right now, to get $2,000 a month for up to 12 months for you, another $2,000 for your spouse or your girlfriend or whatever, and potentially more if you have children, every single month as a stimulus package. I made a whole video about it. It went trending on YouTube and it made my day. Heck, it's still making my day. So that got me thinking, well, this is a stimulus check. What would I spend it on? What kind of stimulus do I want to give the economy? And so I got to thinking to myself, well, they got the new Canon R coming out, the R5. I could buy a whole new set of those. I could buy a nice new iMac Pro. Heck, I could buy the Model Y for my family. You know what? I'll buy this Cybertruck. I'll just have to wait a little bit for it to arrive, but I'll have a Cybertruck. I could spend that $48,000 on a whole host of things. But then I got to thinking to myself, what would I have to do to turn that $48,000 into $1 million, and how long would it take? And that's what this video is about. Showing you how I could turn that $48,000 into $1 million in 5 different ways, and exactly how long it would take with each of those methods. Option number 1, let's say I wasn't super familiar with investing, but I knew there were options for me to protect my money while also growing it. In other words, I could put my money into a high-yield savings account like a Robinhood or an M1 Finance account, and I'd get this cool debit card to make it really easy and tempting for me to spend that money I was saving. Yeah, well, my money would grow somewhere around 1% in one of those high-yield savings accounts, which is cool, making 1% on the tax-free money that I didn't have to do anything for. But Kevin, how long is it gonna take to turn that money into $1 million? Well, it would take, at 1%, 306 years just to turn that $48,000 of stimulus money into $1 million. Well, this sucks. I may as well go spend it, cause saving is stupid. Okay, but what if I met some smooth-talking sales guy that had a flashy jet and flashy cars and flashy watches, and he said, look at all the wealth I got. I got rich with my fund. If you wanna get rich too, give me your money and I'll invest it for you, cause you're too dumb to know how to do it yourself. I'll pay you 6%, I'll take some fees, so you'll be left with somewhere around 4%. And kind of thinking to yourself, well, it's true. Maybe I don't know how to invest that well. If that guy has all those fancy things, maybe he knows how to handle his money more than I do. Okay, 4%, that's like 4 times as much money I'm making in the savings account. How long would it take to turn my $48,000 investment into $1 million? The answer is it would take 78 years with that smooth talking sales dude. That also kind of sucks. I'd rather just go spend the money. That's lame. And the next thing I know is if there's a crash or a recession, he's gonna tell me I'm not gonna be able to take that money out of the account to help save and feed my family. Yeah, okay, 78 years? No thanks. So far, option number 1 and option number 2 suck. Like, I may as well spend my money on Thor's hammer and just go work my job and grind to make some more money, because obviously saving it or investing it ain't gonna make my $48,000 turn into $1 million. I guess I'll never be a millionaire. Option number 3, I'm sure you've heard of the stock market. Well, what if I said 40 years ago, the stock market, the S&P 500, was selling for $118, and today it's like $2,700. Well, if we work that backwards, we find out that the S&P averaged about an 8.2% return over those years, which if we saw that again, is twice how much money we were making with the sleazy sales guy, and 8 times as much money we'd be making as in the savings account. Now, it is the stock market, so it's risky. It's like on a roller coaster, right? But historically, if you believe in the US economy, it tends to go up over very long periods of time. And over the last 40 years, it went up 8.2%. And so if you took $48,000 of money given to you by the government, you didn't have to add a single dime. All you did was took the money and throw it into the stock market and check it again in 40 years, you would be a millionaire in 40 years. But I mean, that's also kind of long. Like, can we speed this up a little bit? Well, actually you can. You can automatically reinvest something called your dividends, or sort of your distributions of cash flow from the companies you're investing in. It's kind of like Apple saying, hey, we made so much profit off that dude Kevin who buys all these Apple products all the time. Let's give all of our shareholders a little bit of the money they have invested back. Well, if you automatically reinvested the dividends that were coming out of the S&P 500, and let's just make this easy and say they were an average of 1% dividends. They're actually a little higher in the market, but we're just gonna make this simple. If you just reinvested your dividends and you also threw it into the stock market, you check the little box, it's as easy as that, you check the box, it's like automatically reinvest my money, no problem. You would actually shave 5 years off, so you would be a millionaire in 35 years with the $48,000 of free money you got, which I realize is still a very long time, but think about this, if you're 30 years old today, in 35 years you'd be 65 and you'd be a millionaire. If you were 20 years old today, you would be a millionaire at 55 and you didn't even do anything for it. This is literally money the government gave you. You did nothing and you turned it into $1 million at 55 years old if you did this at 20. Heck, you could start it at 16 if this plan passes. You did it at 30, just at 35 years. But can we get this down even more? And the answer is yes. Let's say you started by putting your money into M1 Finance. That's where you put your cash. But then you decided, you know what, I'm going to invest it into that index fund. You move the $48,000 over to the index fund side of M1 Finance. Totally free, by the way. You could now borrow money on margin, which means you could take 30% and borrow it and also invest that if you want. This is like going to the casino and they hand you $48,000 when you sit down at roulette, okay? Like that's free money. You're playing with the house's money here. Anyway, you put $48,000 in, you borrow 30% on margin, so you borrow an extra $14,400, and now you're investing $62,400. Well, how long would it take you to become a millionaire using a little bit of debt? Remember, you're only using 30% debt, but you are using some debt. Use a little bit of debt, how long would it take? Well, this would bring down your time to millionaire, including having already calculated all the interest you'd have to pay. Don't worry, I already did all that math. It would take your time to millionaire down to 31 years. Okay, still a little long, you know, like the 30-year mortgage on a house is a little long. I mean, that's cool. I'd be a millionaire with found money, basically, but it's still gonna take 31 years. And I don't wanna wait 31 years. I wanna be a millionaire sooner. What else can I do, Kevin? Option number 4, and this isn't the fastest, but this is gonna be pretty dramatic. Option number 4, you buy a $350,000 house with 3.5% down. That means you're taking $12,250 of your $48,000 and buying a house with it. Now, you're going to buy a $350,000 house, but you want to buy real estate below market value. That's what I talk about on this channel all of the time. Buying real estate below market value. So you're actually going to be buying, let's just be moderate here, and say a $400,000 house. Usually the goal is to get a bigger spread between those two numbers, which is also very realistic, but for the sake of this example, this is a slam dunk. You could buy $350,000 houses that are worth $400,000 pretty much all day long in high quality areas around the country. You're going to live in the property for a year, and then you're going to move and rent it out to a tenant. And the goal is to do the numbers so that the tenant pays for your property manager, your repairs, your fix-up, and all the little stuff a house needs and the mortgage and everything. The tenant's basically paying all of that for you. This is why you want to get good deals cheap, because they cash flow better. So let's put aside the details because I could spend hours talking about all the details. Well, keeping things very simple, if you bought these 3 houses, you would own and control $1.2 million worth of real estate, and you'd have loans of about $1 million, which this makes sense because you started with about $48,000 plus $50,000 plus $50,000 plus $50,000 that you got these deals under market value. This is a super quick approximation. Well, so in the same time frame that the stock market went up about 8.2%, real estate went up about 3.5%, which is less. But because you can control so much house with so little money, you can actually make money faster. and in a relatively safe way because the tenant is paying the loan for you. But if we take 3.5%, and remember you've got $1.2 million of real estate, well, after 15 years at 3.5% growth, your $1.2 million real estate portfolio would be worth $2 million. Your debt, though, because your tenants are paying off your loans over time, every single month you get a rent check, you're not just paying the mortgage, you're actually paying off the mortgage by a little bit every month. Well, that would bring all of your loans down to about $747,000, which if we now, after 15 years, decided, you know what, sell everything, pay the realtors, fix them up a little bit, pay the termite damage, I don't care, forget all the cash flow, I'm done with tenants and toilets, sell everything. Well, now you would have taken your $48,000 in free money from the government, you would have turned it into $2 million. You'd have to pay off the debt of $747,000 left over. I'm being really generous here and saying you would spend $253,000 to sell these places and fix them up a little bit before selling them. And guess what you would be left with after 15 years? $1 million, baby. So in other words, if you got this money, this $48,000 of tax-free money at 20 years old, you'd be a millionaire at 35. If you got the money at 16, you'd be a millionaire at 31. If you got the money at 30, you'd be a millionaire at 45. This is really cool. Wow, why does this happen in real estate? Why do you get so much more money in real estate? Well, it's because real estate takes a little bit more effort than just throwing money into the stock market. I could throw money into the stock market in a minute, but buying deals and owning them and hiring property managers, it does take a little bit of effort, but it's a really high-paying side hustle, especially since you'd be turning $48,000 into $1 million in just 15 years. Now, I'm gonna show you a fifth option, but just know that I'm a real estate dude. I started doing this at 19 years old with $9,000 and my girlfriend's $9,000, and we followed this strategy. Now we're married, we've got 2 kids, and I have an over $8 million real estate portfolio. And that's exactly why I teach you these strategies in my program linked below, which is right next to the link to get your 2 free stocks with Webull. If you deposit $100, you get 2 free stocks valued up to $1,400, and right next to the awesome ability to get a life insurance quote in under 5 minutes. And I shouldn't even just say quote, you could literally sign up within 5 minutes. We did, it was like instant, it's so fast. It was actually kind of fun to fill it out to see how much it would be. But anyway, let's talk about the fifth way. Is there anything faster than 15 years? Well, before I give you option number 5, let me quickly say there is kind of like a pit stop here. You could do option 4.5, and that's still in the real estate sector. You could get more aggressive with this. This is controlling these properties and never taking out any more debt and never buying any more real estate. You buy 3 houses, hey, this works out over 15 years. You follow this strategy, it works. But remember how I said you were only buying those properties about $50,000 below market value? What if you could get those deals $100,000 below market value? And what if now you got a few of those deals and then you took some money out with a refinance and that let you buy 2 or 3 more? The options to introduce money and debt and leverage into real estate are really big. You just have to be really careful because every time you hear debt, you increase the risk of losing money, which does make sense. So you have to be really careful with how you balance investing and debt. So usually I recommend try to stay as safe as possible, buy real estate below market value, and don't sink yourself to your eyeballs in debt because that can be very risky, especially shorter term debt. The good news is with real estate, you're usually taking out what are known as 30-year fixed rate mortgages, which the beautiful thing about that is even if the market falls, the bank can't call you up and say, yo, you owe us all the money today. You have a contract that says for 30 years, as long as you make the payment, that's it. You've got one steady Eddie payment that you could plan for. Option number 5, this is the fast one. This one turns $2,000 a month into $1 million fast. Let's start option 5 very simple. Let's say you've got $48,000, and I would sell you this piece of paper, a contract, for $950. How many of these pieces of paper could you buy? And what is that piece of paper? Well, let's just figure out how many of these pieces of paper we could buy for right now. We could buy 48,000 divided by $950. We could buy 50 of these contracts. Cool. But what am I gonna do with 50 pieces of paper that look like a folded up envelope? Well, let's hold that thought for a moment And let's now talk about this. I'm just gonna call it a stock for simplicity. Let's say there's a stock called SPY, or SPY for short. And let's say that back in November, that stock is selling for $310 in November. And you think, you know what? I don't know why, but I think in March, around 3/20 of 2020, that stock is only going to be worth $220. That's a difference of $90. In other words, you think that the stock's gonna go from $310 to $220. So you spent your $48,000 on a YOLO, basically, a bet. You made a bet that a stock was gonna go from $310 to $220, and you were gonna pocket the difference. And you made that bet by buying 50 of these contracts. These are called option contracts. And they let you, on March 20th, 2020, sell 100 shares of SPY at $310. Well, as luck would have it, Ray Dalio, a billionaire hedge fund manager, made this exact bet. And on March 20th, SPY was trading for $220. So he had the right to sell the stock SPY for $310, even though it was currently trading for $220, which means he could buy it for $220 and then immediately resell it for $310, pocketing the $90 difference. And all he did was take that $48,000 bet, I mean, more in his world, but he took our $48,000 and threw it into the right to buy these contracts. Well, we have 50 of these contracts. 50 of these contracts. Each contract lets us buy 100 shares, and the profit we made on each of these contracts after we spent our $48,000 was $90. So all of a sudden, when you take 50 contracts times 100 shares per contract times a $90 spread, you would have made $450,000 in a matter of 4 months. One more time, and you're pretty much at $1 million within a year. Or you go bankrupt and your YOLO didn't work out. And folks, this is literally, option number 5 is literally what has happened to a lot of people. A lot of people saw this pandemic, this crisis, starting in February and early March, and they bought a bunch of option contracts, and in some cases, they 10x'd their money. They took their $48,000 and turned it into over $450,000 after the premium. This happened a lot because of the pandemic that we're seeing. This is obviously speculative. Option number 5, to make this happen in a year, is almost like playing the lottery, unless you happen to have some inside information, or you look at the market and you go, you know what? I think in 6 months, everything's gonna be back to normal and it's gonna be booming. YOLO on options. Or I think in 6 months, the economy's gonna suck and everything's gonna be in the toilet for some reason. YOLO the options. Now, unfortunately, the downside of option number 5 is if you're wrong and the SPY stock actually went up and it went to like $320, this option would be dang near worthless. In other words, you would have lost your $48,000. Now, just for the comments I get, yes, I know that SPY is not a stock, it's an exchange traded fund. I don't want to hear it. But anyway, what I do want you to think about is, whoa, think about this. If you spend your $48,000 of stimulus, if this bill passes, you don't become a millionaire. If you put the money into a savings account, it takes you over 300 years to become a millionaire. You may as well spend it. If you give it to some sleazy dude who's running a fund who says he's gonna make you 4% on your money or 5% or 6%, whatever, and then he's gonna charge you some fees, it's gonna take you 78 years to do it. And so what were the real options that actually made us real money? The stock market and real estate. Option number 5 was pretty fluky and lottery style, and you know what? You'd really have to have either some good information or a really good intuition to make that work. But option number 3 and 4 and 4.5, where you're investing in index funds, or you're buying in the stock market, or you're buying real estate, are really actual real ways that you can make real wealth fast. and I teach both of those in my programs, link below. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Get your free quote for life insurance. Get your 2 free stocks with Webull. Really appreciate you being here. Let's hope that second round of stimulus passes. Thanks again, and until next time.